All right, so have you ever wished you could just download knowledge directly into your brain? Like, boom, you instantly know how to speak a new language or understand quantum physics.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Well, today we're diving into a white paper from a company that's called EON Reality, and let me tell you, they're making some pretty bold claims.
Bold. How so?
They say they're using AI and XR technology to revolutionize education, making it possible to learn complex stuff in like 5 to 10 minutes.
Wow, okay. That's a big claim right off the bat.
Right, and get this, they already have over 42 million users on their platform, and they're aiming for 1 billion in the next 5 years.
1 billion. That's huge.
Exactly. So naturally, we had to take a deep dive into their white paper to see what's going on. They've got this whole system broken down into three main parts: AI ready, train AI, and advanced certification. We're going to break down each of those and see if their vision for the future of learning holds up.
Sounds like a plan.
So let's start with AI ready. This is where they introduce this wild concept called knowledge injection. It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Knowledge injection, huh? What exactly does that entail?
Well, the way they describe it, it's kind of like instantly downloading information into your brain.
Yeah.
Bypassing all that tedious studying and just absorbing knowledge directly.
Okay, so not exactly plugging a USB into your ear, but using technology to speed up the learning process. I'm intrigued, but also a bit skeptical.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, is that even possible? Is it really as simple as just injecting knowledge into your brain?
Well, from what I gathered from the white paper, knowledge injection is more about using AI to personalize and optimize the learning experience. It's not about instant downloads, but more about creating a hyper-efficient learning path tailored to the individual.
Okay, so how does that actually work?
So imagine this. AI analyzes your existing knowledge base, your learning style, your strengths and weaknesses. Based on that, it curates the perfect content for you. Then they use XR, like virtual reality and augmented reality, to make the learning experience incredibly engaging.
So it's like instead of reading a boring textbook, you're actually interacting with the information in a virtual world.
Exactly. You're not just passively absorbing facts, you're actively engaging with the subject matter. And EON Reality claims this approach can slash traditional learning time by like 60%?
60%. That's a pretty huge time saver.
Yeah, I mean, imagine being able to learn a new skill in a fraction of the time it would normally take.
That would be pretty incredible. But, I can't help but wonder, is this just like marketing hype or is there actual science backing this up?
That's a very valid question. They do cite some studies in their white paper, but, we need to look into those studies ourselves to see how robust the research is. It would be interesting to see how they're measuring learning outcomes and comparing their method to traditional methods.
Definitely. It's one thing to make bold claims, but it's another thing entirely to actually deliver on those promises.
All right, so let's say for a minute that this knowledge injection thing actually works as well as they claim. How do they make sure you actually retain all that information long term? That's where train AI comes in, right?
Precisely.
Hmm.
Train AI is all about deep learning, not just surface level memorization. They want you to actually understand the concepts and be able to apply them.
Okay, but how do they do that? I mean, is it more than just quizzes and flashcards?
Oh, it's much more sophisticated than that. They have this whole arsenal of 32 different learning elements.
32. Seriously.
Yeah. And they all work together to create a very immersive and, sticky learning experience. Like, how sometimes you read something and it just goes in one ear and out the other?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Well, Eon Reality aims to combat that by making learning as interactive and engaging as possible. They've got these immersive 360-degree environments where you can learn by doing rather than just reading or listening. So, like, what kind of environments are we talking about?
Well, imagine you're learning about history, right? Instead of just reading about ancient Rome in a textbook, you could actually put on a VR headset and walk through the Colosseum or explore the Roman Forum. You could even interact with virtual characters who could teach you about Roman culture and society.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. I can definitely see how that kind of experience would make learning a lot more memorable.
Exactly. And it's not just about history. They're applying this to a wide range of subjects. You could learn about biology by virtually dissecting a frog, or learn about engineering by building a virtual bridge.
Okay, that does sound pretty cool. But, how do we know the information presented in these virtual environments is actually accurate?
That's a crucial point. With anything educational, accuracy is paramount. From what they describe in the white paper, it sounds like they're partnering with subject matter experts to create the content for these environments. But of course, we'd need to look into how they're ensuring quality control and preventing biases from creeping in.
Right, right. We don't want to be learning fake history or bad science in these fancy virtual worlds. So, besides these immersive environments, what are some other learning elements they're using?
Another interesting element they highlight is what they call knowledge simulators.
Knowledge simulators. What are those?
It's basically like a high-tech virtual lab where you can practice real-world skills.
Oh, interesting. Give me an example.
Okay, so let's say you're training to be a surgeon. Instead of practicing on, real patients right away, you could use a knowledge simulator to perform virtual surgeries.
I see. So you can make mistakes and learn from them in a safe virtual environment without, any real-world consequences.
Exactly. They can simulate all sorts of scenarios, from routine procedures to complex emergencies. It allows you to hone your skills and build your confidence before you ever step into a real operating room.
Okay, that makes sense. It's kind of like a flight simulator, but for surgeons.
Exactly. And they claim that all of this leads to 70 to 90% improvement in retention rates.
Wow, 70 to 90%. That's a massive improvement. But, I'm always a little wary of statistics like that. How are they actually measuring retention? I mean, are they comparing their results to traditional methods in a fair and scientific way?
That's a very important point to consider. We need to look closely at the methodology behind those figures. Are they controlling for other factors that might influence learning and retention?
Right, exactly. Like, are the people using their platform just more motivated learners to begin with? Or are they comparing their results to, like, the least effective traditional teaching methods? There are a lot of ways statistics can be misleading,
Absolutely. And that's why it's always crucial to dig deeper and look beyond the headline numbers.
for sure. Okay, so let's move on to the third part of their system, advanced certification. Getting certified in any field can be a real pain. It's often expensive, time-consuming, and sometimes feels pretty arbitrary. Like, does passing a multiple choice test really prove you can do the job?
Yeah, I hear you.
So what's EON Reality's take on certification?
Well, they're basically proposing a radical shift in how we assess and validate skills. They want to move away from traditional tests and towards something more practical and, well, immersive.
Okay, so how does that work in practice?
So instead of sitting down for a written exam or even a practical exam in the real world, imagine proving your skills in a virtual environment.
Oh, interesting. So, like, if you're a chef, you wouldn't have to cook a meal for a panel of judges. You just have to do it in a virtual kitchen.
Something like that, yeah. But it's actually even more sophisticated than that. They use a combination of biometric verification and simulations to assess your competency.
Okay, break that down for me. What is biometric verification?
Basically, they use sensors to track things like your eye movements, your heart rate, even your brain waves to see how engaged you are and how you respond to different challenges in the simulation.
Oh, wow. So it's like they're not just seeing if you can complete the task, they're also measuring your focus and how you handle pressure.
Exactly. They're trying to get a holistic picture of your abilities.
That's pretty intense. And then what about these simulations?
The simulations are designed to be as realistic as possible, so you're basically demonstrating your skills in a real-world context, just in a virtual setting.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. But will employers actually accept this new kind of certification? I mean, it all sounds very cutting edge, but will people trust it?
That's the big question, isn't it? Will employers and institutions see this as a legitimate alternative to traditional certification? For this to really take off, there needs to be widespread adoption.
Right. It's all well and good to have this fancy new system, but if nobody recognizes it, then it's kind of pointless.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how EON Reality tackles that challenge.
Okay, so stepping back for a minute, EN Reality is basically painting a picture of a future where learning is faster, more engaging, and more accessible. And they're not thinking small. They're in over 80 countries, and they're aiming for 1 billion users.
Yeah, their ambitions are definitely sky high, and they're putting a lot of emphasis on mobile accessibility, which I think is really important.
Right, so anyone with a smartphone can potentially access their platform. You don't need a fancy VR headset or a powerful computer.
Exactly. That makes their technology accessible to a much wider audience, especially in parts of the world where computers and high-speed internet are less common.
Yeah, if they can really deliver high-quality educational experiences through a simple smartphone, that could be absolutely revolutionary, especially for people in developing countries.
Absolutely. Imagine students in rural communities being able to access the same level of education as students in big cities, all through their phones. That's the kind of potential this technology has.
It's exciting stuff for sure.
Yeah, and it's not just about students. EON Reality is already working with universities, Fortune 500 companies, and even government organizations who are using their platform for training and development.
Wow, so they're really casting a wide net.
They are. I mean, it's still early days, but they seem to be making some serious inroads.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. EON Reality is basically betting big on this idea that we can supercharge learning using AI and XR. But is it really that simple? I mean, are there any potential downsides to this kind of rapid knowledge acquisition?
That's a great question. One concern could be that people might start to prioritize speed over depth of understanding. Like, if you can learn something in 5 minutes, will you really take the time to delve into the nuances and complexities of a subject?
Right, it's like, are we going to become a society of superficial learners who just skim the surface of everything?
Yeah, that's a valid concern. And what happens to traditional education in this scenario? I mean, if everyone can learn anything instantly, what's the role of schools and universities?
Right, I mean, will we even need teachers anymore? Will traditional degrees become obsolete? These are some pretty big questions that EON Reality doesn't really address in their white paper.
Yeah, it's all very thought-provoking stuff. And I think it raises even bigger questions about the future of work in society. Like, if knowledge acquisition becomes this rapid and accessible, what skills will be most valuable in the job market?
Right, because it won't just be about what you know. It'll be about what you can do with that knowledge, how you can apply it creatively and critically.
Exactly. We'll need to develop new ways of assessing and valuing skills beyond just knowledge recall. It's a whole new paradigm.
It really is. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the big takeaway here is that EON Reality is presenting a very compelling vision for the future of learning. But it's definitely not without its challenges and potential downsides. We encourage all of you listening to check out their white paper and form your own conclusion.
Absolutely. And think about what this could mean for you, for your career, for your kids' education. This is a conversation that's just beginning.
Indeed, this is a future we need to be actively shaping, not just passively observing. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
My pleasure.
Until next time.